one down. It was in this moment that I learned how to be boring. Frankly, I hadn't really expected to perform in that dance recital. The year before, my older sister Nancy was anointed the fastest swimmer in her event by the Guinness Book of World Records, and my older brother Andy was accepted into Harvard. I couldn't outswim my sister or outthink my brother, so how could I stand out and make my parents proud? Dance, I decided, would allow me to define myself away from the overcrowded family trophy mantle of sports and Ivy League schools. So I took dance lessons, and I learned pirouettes and jazz hands, grapevines and old classic tap maneuvers like Shuffle Off to Buffalo. I wasn't a great technical dancer by any means. The other girls in my class were more skilled, more talented, more classically beautiful. But that said, I doubt any of them had more fun than I did in class. My dance teacher, Miss Mervyn, agreed. One time she told me, "Sally, you're not a great dancer, but you do have a certain spark." I remember I beamed. "A spark? I can work with that. Hand me the kerosene." That year, Miss Mervyn gave me a solo in the dance recital. This was in part an honor, and I suspect also a way to fund the performance, since it required dozens of individual lessons in a hand-sewn costume. I was ecstatic. Finally, I'd get to be good at something. We rehearsed for several hours a week, my mom driving me to the studio after brownies and before dinner. And then at the dinner table, I'd look around and just glow. Nancy had swim practice. Andy had school. And now at last, I too had my place among them. I would make my family proud. I pointed my toes and I practiced my steps under the dinner table. I spent every moment mentally rehearsing in order to get the steps just right. But the steps just felt so painstakingly intricate. And secretly, I would have preferred a simpler routine so I could enjoy the dancing instead of the counting out the choreography. But none of the other girls seemed to struggle with their dances, and I didn't want to disappoint Miss Mervyn. At last came opening night. My costume was finished. It was a confection of itchy and highly flammable nylon, bedazzled with sequins, held up by tight elastic straps. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. I stood backstage, watching my teacher intently, awaiting my cue. My music began. I was ready. As I was about to prance on stage, Miss Mervyn whispered into my ear, "Just don't forget the steps." Well, you can probably guess what happened next. My mind went blank. Those carefully engineered steps fled from my brain like rats abandoning a sinking ship. I froze with panic. The music stopped awkwardly, mid-note. The audience was silent. The spotlight turned off with a loud clank, echoing through the auditorium. I glanced backstage to find Miss Mervyn. She looked horrified. It was the first time I'd ever worn mascara, and a black teardrop cascade began. I never took another dance lesson. Ever. You are already fascinating. On the day you were born, you already knew how to fascinate. Like breathing and swallowing and smiling, the ability to fascinate is a hardwired survival mechanism. It's an instinctive form of connection. We all have this ability in some form. But over time, people can lose their innate ability to fascinate. They acquire layers of boring. Like an oyster protecting itself against the grain of sand, people build shells that they believe can shield them from a negative outcome. You've seen this before, maybe experienced it. It's the student who learns how to camouflage himself to blend into the popular high school crowd. The employee who waters down his ideas in order to shield himself from criticism. The new entrepreneur who tries to run her business just like everyone else and ends up with a Me Too product. In any pressured environment, it can be easier to stay in the background. Unnoticed seems easier than unworthy. Hiding works for a while, but it always backfires. You will never be your most successful when evaluated according to criteria that don't allow you to stand out. There's a certain puritanical goodness to avoiding attention. It's almost like a moral cleanliness. Like organized closets, modest hemlines. It's beyond reproach in a nobody gets fired for buying IBM kind of way. Across geographic borders and cultural boundaries, attention attracts danger, while anonymity can be seen as a virtue. When the stakes rise, so does perceived danger. Just as chameleons rush to hide by changing colors to match their surroundings, people want to hide too. In a sense,